The desert was endless. Waves of golden sand stretched as far as the eye could see, broken only by the burning sun above. To most people, the Sahara was just an empty wasteland, but beneath the sands, something ancient and powerful had been sleeping for centuries. Long ago, before most people alive could even imagine, the Earth had been attacked. A race of cold and cruel aliens had come down from the stars. They had ships that blotted out the sky and weapons that burned cities into ashes. Humanity fought bravely, but hopelessly. The invaders were far stronger, far smarter, and far more advanced, but something had gone wrong for the aliens. In one of their battles, their largest warship was damaged. It fell from the sky like a dying star, breaking apart as it crashed into the heart of the desert. The battle ended shortly after. For reasons unknown, the alien fleet left Earth, abandoning their ruined vessel and retreating into the void. The people of Earth rebuilt their lives slowly. Generations passed. The war was remembered only in history books and legends. Nations grew strong again, but nobody forgot the scars left behind. The ruined alien warship was buried under shifting sands, hidden from sight, feared by governments, and ignored by most of the world, until one day it was found again. The discovery Dr. Elias Karim was not a soldier or a politician. He was an archaeologist who believed history still held secrets waiting to be uncovered. For years he had searched for ancient ruins in the desert, following old maps, satellite scans, and his own instincts. One blazing afternoon while surveying a remote dune, his equipment picked up something impossible: metal, deep underground, older than any human structure. Excited, he called his small team of students and assistants. They dug for days, battling the relentless heat. On the third night, their shovels struck blackened steel. Not rust, not stone. Metal, alien metal. The team stared in awe as more of the strange surface was uncovered. It was smooth yet scarred, glowing faintly under the moonlight as though it had once held life. "This is no ruin," Elias whispered. His hands trembled as he touched the buried hull. "This is not from Earth." The world had forgotten, but Elias had not. He knew the legends of the alien war. He knew the stories of the great ship that fell. And now, after centuries of silence, it was here, waiting. The first expedition inside news of the discovery spread quickly, though governments tried to keep it quiet. Elias and his team were joined by soldiers, engineers, and scientists from several nations. Together they drilled open a passage into the ship. Inside was darkness, thick and heavy like a tomb sealed for eternity. Their flashlights pierced the gloom, revealing corridors larger than any human building. The walls were covered in alien markings, some glowing faintly with dying energy. The air smelled of metal and dust, mixed with something strange, something unearthly. The deeper they went, the more damage they saw. Whole sections of the ship had collapsed, twisted by the crash. Burn marks scarred the walls, evidence of battles fought inside. Machinery, once elegant and advanced, now lay broken like bones. Yet even in ruin, the ship was magnificent. Control, rooms with massive consoles, hangars large enough to hold skyscrapers, reactors silent but still humming with a faint, dangerous power. It was not just a vessel, it was a city, a fortress, a weapon built for war. "This is impossible," one of the engineers muttered. "How can it still be intact after all these centuries?" "Alien design," Elias said softly. "They build for forever." But the truth was clear to everyone. The aliens had left this ship behind because it was too broken to fix. To them, it was nothing but scrap. The humans, most of the officials, wanted to study the ship, to lock it away in secret labs or even bury it again. They said it was too dangerous. The technology was beyond human understanding. The risks were too great. But among the team, there were others who thought differently. Captain Sarah Holt, a retired fighter pilot, walked through the alien corridors with fire in her eyes. She had lost family in the war years ago. "They left this here because they thought it was worthless," she told Elias. "But we're not like them. We fix things. We survive. If there's even a chance this ship can fly again, we can't waste it." At first, Elias thought she was mad. But then he looked around. Humans had always rebuilt what was broken. Cities destroyed by bombs, machines shattered by war, even lives torn apart by loss. Why not this? The idea spread quietly at first, then burned like wildfire. A secret group formed: engineers, mechanics, pilots, and dreamers. They were not the most powerful or the most wealthy, but they were determined. They wanted to rebuild the ship, not as the aliens had designed it, but as humans would. The broken heart of the ship. The greatest obstacle lay at the center of the vessel: the reactor. A massive engine the size of a cathedral, silent now, but once powerful enough to power entire fleets. It was cracked, bleeding strange glowing fluids, its systems locked in alien code no one could read. To alien eyes it was dead. But to human eyes, it was an opportunity. The team brought in human technology, crude nuclear reactors, solar collectors, and miles of cabling. Where the alien systems demanded perfection, humans introduced improvisation. Wires were spliced, circuits rerouted, and power was forced into the dead heart of the ship. One night, after weeks of failure, the ship trembled. Lights flickered to life across the corridor. Consoles glowed faintly. The walls hummed with energy. The humans stared in silence as the ship, dead for centuries, exhaled a breath of power again. They had done it. They had awakened the wreck. Fear and hope, of course. Not everyone was pleased. Governments argued fiercely. Some wanted the ship destroyed before it became a threat. Others wanted to control it, to make it their own weapon. But the team refused to hand it over. This ship was not for one nation. It was for all humanity. Elias knew the truth deep inside. The aliens might return one day. They had left Earth before. But what if they came again, stronger and angrier? What if they came to finish what they started? If that day came, humanity would need more than bravery. They would need power. They would need a weapon forged not just from alien technology, but from human determination. For the first time in centuries, the people of Earth stood at the edge of something new. Beneath the desert, the wreck of an enemy ship had become the seat of hope. Broken, twisted, and scarred, yes, but so were humans. And if there was one thing humans knew better than any alien, it was how to rebuild. Closing scene of Part 1. The sun set over the Sahara, painting the dunes in red and gold. Deep underground, the ship's lights glowed faintly like stars trapped beneath the earth. Elias stood on a balcony inside the vessel, looking at the miles of twisted corridors now alive with human workers. He could hear the clang of tools, the hum of generators, the laughter of people who refused to give up. Captain Sarah joined him, her eyes fixed on the reactor core that now pulsed weakly. "It's not ready yet," she said. "No," Elias agreed. "But it's alive. That's enough." She smiled. "One day it'll fly again, and when it does, the galaxy will remember us." The ship groaned, as though agreeing. Once abandoned, now reborn. The ship was alive again, but only barely. Its faint lights and weak hum gave the humans hope. But the truth was clear. The warship was still broken. It was like reviving a giant with only half a heart. For the alien builders, this wreck was useless. But for humans, it was a challenge. And challenges were never wasted. The work begins deep inside the Sahara. The hidden base around the ship grew larger every week. At first, there were only a few scientists and engineers. Now hundreds worked day and night. Cranes lifted broken panels, welders sealed cracks, and soldiers guarded the site from curious eyes. The ship became a city of sparks and sound. Dr. Elias. Karim walked through the corridors each morning with his notebook. He recorded every change, every discovery. But he knew he was no engineer. The real progress came from the people who touched the broken systems with their hands: mechanics, electricians, and technicians who had never seen alien technology before, yet somehow found ways to make it work. Captain Sarah Holt oversaw the training programs. "If this ship flies," she told the recruits, "it won't be because we understood every alien detail. It'll be because we refused to quit when it broke down." Her voice carried through the ship like steel. Many of the workers had never fought in wars. They were young, untested, but they looked at her with respect. Alien precision versus human improvisation. The more they repaired, the clearer the difference became between alien design and human thinking. Aliens built with perfection. Every wire had a place. Every circuit was flawless. Their systems were fast, but they had no room for error. Once something broke, it was nearly impossible to fix without exact parts. Humans, however, were used to failure. They patched holes with scrap. They turned broken machines into new ones. Their technology was crude compared to the aliens, but it was flexible. One day, the engineering team faced a crisis. A section of the propulsion system had collapsed during the crash. The original parts were shattered, their alien materials impossible to recreate. "We'll never get this working," one engineer groaned, slamming his wrench on the floor. Sarah crossed her arms. "So? Then we don't build it their way. We build it ours." Her team stared at her, confused. "Use human parts," she said simply. "Engines, fuel cells, whatever we can get. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to work." It sounded insane. But weeks later, against all expectations, the propulsion system roared to life with a mix of alien tech and human-made turbines pulled from Earth's rockets. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't smooth, but it worked. For the first time, the wreck shook with real power. First test. Failure and fire encouraged, the team pushed further. They decided to run a full system test, lights, engines, and weapons all together. The day of the test, hundreds gathered in the central hangar. Elias stood with Sarah at the controls, his hands shaking as he pressed the activation sequence. For a moment, silence. Then the walls glowed with energy. The engines rumbled and the air filled with the sound of life. The ship was waking. But then, disaster. Sparks exploded across the control panels. A massive circuit blew, sending fire rushing through the corridor. Workers shouted and ran for safety. Alarms blared in alien tones. The ship trembled as if trying to tear itself apart. "Shut it down," Sarah yelled. It took minutes. Long, terrifying minutes. But finally, the systems powered down. Smoke filled the chamber, and the workers coughed, covered in ash. The test had failed. Many wanted to give up after that. They said the ship was too dangerous, too unstable. They had almost died inside it. But Sarah stood in front of them, her face dark with soot, her voice steady. "This is how humans win," she said. "We fail, and we try again, and again, and again, until the impossible becomes real." Her words lit a fire in their hearts. No one left. A divided world far above the desert, the rest of the world was not blind. Satellites had spotted strange activity in the Sahara. Rumors spread of a massive construction hidden under the sands. World leaders argued. Some demanded the project be stopped. Others wanted control of the ship for themselves. The United Nations held secret meetings, but agreements were hard to reach. In the shadows, agents tried to infiltrate the site. Drones flew overhead. Some nations even considered bombing the wreck to ensure it never rose again. But somehow the secret team held firm. They were not working for a single country. They were working for Earth. The project had no flag, no border. It was humanity's ship. Now, a symbol of unity inside the vessel, workers began to paint human words and symbols on the walls, messages in dozens of languages, flags of many nations side by side. "This is our ship," one worker said proudly. "Not theirs." Even Elias, who had once doubted, now believed. He watched as people from different nations, people who had once been enemies, worked together without hesitation. Engineers from America handed tools to technicians from Asia. Scientists from Africa shared notes with pilots from Europe. Soldiers stood guard side by side, not as rivals but as protectors of one dream. The ship had become more than a weapon. It was hope made real. Small victories. The weeks that followed brought new successes. The reactor, partially stabilized with human nuclear tech. Its alien fuel was gone, but humans found ways to feed it with modified materials. The power was unstable but steady enough to keep the ship alive. The weapons, alien energy cannons, were beyond repair, but humans mounted railguns and missile launchers in their place. They joked that it was ugly, but the firepower was terrifying. The navigation system, the alien star maps were unreadable, but humans uploaded their own databases, combining Earth satellites with alien sensors. It worked like magic. Every success brought cheers. Every failure brought determination. The ship was not the elegant war machine it once had been. It was becoming something new. Something alien and human, broken and reborn. Shadows in the sky. Then came the warning. One evening, while Elias studied alien markings in the command room, alarms suddenly blared. The ship's sensors, once silent, had picked up signals from deep space. Unknown vessels moving closer. Sarah rushed to the screens. "What is it?" The engineers stared at the data in horror. "Ships," one whispered. "Hundreds of them. And they're not human." The air went cold. The aliens were returning. It was not clear if they had come to finish the invasion, or simply to scout. But one thing was certain. Humanity had little time left. The workers looked at the half-broken ship around them. It wasn't ready. The engines were weak, the weapons incomplete, the systems unstable. Against an alien fleet it was hopeless, but Sarah clenched her fists. "Then we make it ready," she said. "We don't have a choice." Closing scene of Part 2 night fell over the desert, but the ship blazed with light. Sparks flew, engines roared, and voices shouted across the corridors. Men and women worked without rest, driven by fear and courage alike. Elias walked among them, watching the impossible task unfold. He saw their exhaustion, their pain, their determination. And for the first time he understood. This was not just about revenge or even survival. This was about proving something greater. Humans were not perfect. They failed, they broke, they bled. But that was their strength. Where the aliens saw useless scrap, humans saw a second chance. The desert was never quiet anymore. What had once been a lonely sea of sand was now filled with the sounds of engines, hammers, and voices working through the night. The ruined Starship, once a silent tomb, had become a living beast. Its halls shook with activity, its chambers glowed with power, and its workers lived with one thought in their minds: the aliens were coming back. The signals picked up by the ship's sensors had spread fear across the camp. At first, many refused to believe it. Maybe it was just a trick or a natural phenomenon in space. But as days passed, the signals grew stronger. The truth could not be denied. The invaders were returning. Preparing for war, Captain Sarah Holt stood at the ship's central command deck, staring at the glowing screen that showed the alien fleet's movement. "They'll be here in weeks," she said, her voice heavy. Dr. Elias Karim stood beside her, his eyes filled with worry. "The ship isn't ready. Half the systems don't work. The reactor is unstable. Even if we manage to fly, how can we face an entire fleet?" Sarah turned to him. Her face was tired, her uniform stained with oil and dust, but her eyes were sharp like blades. "We don't have a choice. If we do nothing, Earth will fall. If we fight, maybe, just maybe, we can stand a chance." Her words spread through. The workers like fire. They were scared, yes, but fear could not stop them now. They had come too far to give up. Human ingenuity, work doubled, then tripled. People slept in shifts, ate in minutes, and returned to the ship with grim determination. Every corner of the vessel was alive with effort. The engineers tore out alien systems they couldn't repair and replaced them with human technology. Crude engines from Earth's rockets were bolted onto the hull. Nuclear missiles were loaded into bays where alien weapons had once rested. Drones designed for mining were turned into repair bots, buzzing like insects through the corridors. The aliens had built their ships for perfection. Humans were building theirs for survival. It was ugly. It was clumsy. But it was powerful. 1. Evening, a young mechanic named Louis stood back and admired the half-repaired railgun mounted to the ship's side. It was patched together from alien metal and human steel, its firing systems powered by jury-rigged circuits. "It looks like garbage," he laughed. Sarah overheard him and smiled grimly. "Good. Garbage is harder to predict." Training the crew ship was more than machines. It needed people. Sarah gathered pilots, soldiers, and volunteers from every nation. Some had flown jets, some had driven tanks, others had never been in battle at all. But all of them were willing to fight. They trained in simulators built from scavenged alien consoles. They studied maps of the stars, learning how to navigate without ever leaving Earth. They practiced drills in the ship's massive hangars, their voices echoing through the steel halls. "Remember," Sarah told them, "we're not trying to be perfect. We're trying to survive. The aliens expect us to fight like them. We won't. We'll fight like humans." Her words filled the recruits with pride. They were not just soldiers now. They were the crew of Earth's first Starship. First flight at last, the day came for the ship to leave the ground. Crowds of workers gathered outside the massive opening carved into the desert. The sun was setting, painting the sky red and gold. For centuries, the wreck had slept in silence. Now it would rise. Engines rumbled. The ground shook. Sand swirled into storms as the patched propulsion system roared to life. Slowly, painfully, the ship lifted, breaking free from the sands that had buried it for so long. Cheers erupted. People cried, hugged, and shouted. The impossible had happened. The ship could fly. But inside the command deck, Sarah did not smile. She gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white. The engines were unstable, the reactor dangerously hot, and alarms blared in half the corridors. It was not ready for war, but it was alive. The alien arrival weeks later, the night sky over, Earth lit up with fire. The alien fleet had arrived. Hundreds of ships appeared like dark stars, their sleek hulls glowing with deadly power. They moved with terrifying grace, forming a wall across the heavens. People across the world looked up, in fear. The news spread instantly. Humanity held its breath. On the command deck of the rebuilt warship, Sarah stared at the screen. "They're here," she whispered. Elias stood beside her, his heart pounding. "Do we have any chance at all?" Sarah's voice was firm. "We make our chance." She gave the order. "Launch." Fire in the sky, the ship rose from the desert. Once more. But this time it climbed higher and higher, breaking through the clouds. The world watched in awe as the massive vessel, scarred and patched, thundered into orbit. The alien fleet turned to meet it. The battle began. Alien weapons fired, beams of energy that cut through space like lightning. The humans answered with railguns and nuclear missiles, each shot shaking the ship to its core. Explosions lit the darkness as fire and steel clashed among the stars. The alien ships were faster, sleeker, more advanced. They moved like dancers, striking with deadly precision. But the human ship fought like a beast. Its movements were rough, unpredictable. Its weapons were crude but powerful. Where the aliens expected logic, the humans gave chaos. Chaos as a weapon at one point. An alien cruiser targeted the ship's engines. A direct hit would have ended everything. But at the last moment, Sarah ordered a crazy maneuver. "Shut down." "The engines!" she barked. The crew froze. "But Captain, do it!" The engines died, and the ship suddenly dropped, falling like a stone. The alien beams shot past harmlessly. Then with a roar, the engines reignited and the ship surged upward, slamming into the cruiser's underside. The railguns fired point blank. The alien vessel exploded in flames. The crew cheered. Sarah only growled, "Again." Time and again, they used chaos as their weapon. They overloaded circuits, launched missiles at impossible angles, and pushed the ship beyond its limits. The aliens, designed for order, could not predict such madness. Losses and pain. But victory came with pain. The ship shook with every hit. Fires spread through its corridors. Sections of the hull broke apart, sending workers into the void. Alarms screamed endlessly. Elias ran through the corridors, helping where he could. He saw fear in the crew's eyes, but also something stronger, defiance. "We can't hold much longer," an engineer shouted. "Then we fight until the last breath," Elias replied. "For every alien ship destroyed, dozens more closed in." The battle was far from over. A message to the galaxy in the middle of the chaos. Sarah made a decision. She ordered the ship's communication systems to broadcast across space. Her voice carried not only to the alien fleet, but to every corner of Earth. "This is Captain Sarah Holt of Earth," she said. "We are not broken. We are not afraid. This ship, once abandoned, is now ours, and we will fight for our home." Her words echoed across the galaxy. The aliens heard her defiance. Humanity heard their own courage. For the first time in history, every human heartbeat is one. Closing scene of Part 3. The battle raged on. The human ship spun through fire and wreckage, half broken, half alive. Alien vessels exploded one after another, but the fleet remained vast. Inside the command deck, Sarah wiped blood from her forehead, her eyes burning with determination. Elias stood at her side, his notebook forgotten, his voice trembling. "Captain, even if we win this battle, there will be more. They won't stop." Sarah smiled coldly. "Then we won't stop either. Let them come. We'll rebuild as many times as it takes." Outside, the ruined warship blazed like a rising sun. Fire burned in the sky, and humanity's first battle among the stars had begun. Space burned with fire. The alien fleet surrounded Earth like a storm of steel and light. Beams of energy cut through the darkness, missiles exploded like suns, and wreckage drifted silently among the stars. At the center of it all, the rebuilt warship, scarred, patched, and roaring with human defiance, fought against impossible odds. The aliens had come expecting weakness. Instead, they had met chaos. The strain of Battle Captain Sarah Holt stood tall on the command deck, her face pale from exhaustion but her eyes sharp as blades. Every few seconds the ship shook under enemy fire. Sparks burst from consoles, smoke filled the air, and alarms screamed like angry voices. "Report!" Sarah shouted. "Shields are gone," yelled an engineer. "Hull integrity at 60%, reactors overheating again." Another officer turned to her. "We can't take much more of this, Captain. The fleet is too large." Sarah gripped the railing. "Then we hit harder. We're not dying here, not today." The crew nodded, fear in their eyes, but also determination. They were tired, bleeding, and bruised, but they would not break. Human chaos versus alien order. The aliens attacked with precision. Their ships moved in perfect formation, every strike coordinated, every maneuver flawless. To them, war was a calculation. But the humans fought differently. Their patched ship twisted, rolled, and lunged unpredictably. Their missiles fired from strange angles, their railguns overloaded beyond safe limits. Where the aliens expected order, they found madness. One alien cruiser closed in, firing a beam of white-hot plasma. Sarah shouted, "Spin us sideways now!" The helmsman hesitated. "That'll tear the hull apart. Do it!" The ship rolled violently, the beam grazing past and slicing off one of its damaged wings. Pieces of metal spun away into the void. But in that same moment, the human railguns fired, slamming into the alien cruiser's weak point. The enemy vessel erupted in a ball of fire. The crew cheered. Sarah allowed herself a thin smile. That's how humans fight. Elias and the broken reactor, deep inside the ship, Dr. Elias Karim ran through the reactor chamber, coughing from smoke. Engineers worked desperately to stabilize the core. Alarms blared and the reactor pulsed with dangerous light. "It's going to blow," shouted one technician. "If we push it any harder, we'll tear ourselves apart." Elias grabbed a tool and helped tighten a valve, his hands shaking. He was no soldier, but he refused to stand aside. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "This ship was dead for centuries. We brought it back. If we stop now, everything is lost. We hold this reactor together, no matter the cost." The engineers looked at him, sweat dripping down their faces, and nodded. They tied pipes with rope, patched holes with steel plates, and forced the alien heart of the ship to beat once more. The reactor screamed like a wounded beast, but it lived. The turning point hours passed. The battle raged on, and the human ship grew weaker with every hit. Fires burned through its corridors. Entire sections were sealed off. Crew members were lost. But then, an opportunity came. One of the alien flagships moved too close. Its massive, form blocking the stars. It was larger, stronger, and armed with enough firepower to destroy Earth's cities in seconds. Sarah narrowed her eyes. That's the one. Take us in. Her officers stared at her in disbelief. Captain, we can't fight a ship that size. We're not going to fight it. We're going to break it. She gave the order. The engines roared, and the human ship charged forward like a wounded predator. The alien flagship opened fire, tearing chunks of metal from the human vessel. But Sarah didn't stop. She pushed harder, faster, closing the distance. Brace for impact, she shouted. The crew grabbed hold of whatever they could as the warship slammed into the flagship's side. The collision shook space itself. Metal screamed, sparks exploded, and alarms howled. The humans had rammed the alien vessel, boarding the enemy. The crash tore open both ships. Without hesitation, Sarah sent boarding teams through the breach. Soldiers armed with rifles stormed the alien halls, their boots pounding against the strange metallic floors. Elias joined them, his heart racing. He had never fought in his life, but he carried a pistol and determination. He could not stand back while others risked everything. The aliens inside were tall, armored, and deadly. Their weapons spat fire, cutting down humans in seconds. But the humans fought with desperation. They used cover, improvised traps, and sheer stubbornness. In one hallway, a group of engineers threw fuel canisters down the corridor, shooting them mid-air to create explosions that forced the aliens back. In another, soldiers charged with bayonets when their ammo ran dry, screaming with fury. The aliens were stronger, but the humans refused to surrender. Striking the course, Sarah led her team deep into the flagship. They fought through waves of defenders, leaving smoke and fire in their path. At last they reached the control room, a massive chamber glowing with alien light. At its center pulsed the flagship's reactor, a towering crystal of energy. Sarah raised her rifle and fired, but the bullets bounced harmlessly off the reactors. "Shield, we can't destroy it this way," Elias shouted. Sarah thought fast. "Then we use ours." She opened her comms. "Engineering, overload our reactor. Channel the surge into the breach." The engineers froze. "Captain, that could kill us all." "Do it," Sarah ordered. This ship was rebuilt for one reason, to finish what they started centuries ago. If we fall, we take them with us. Elias looked at her, shocked. "You'll sacrifice the whole crew?" Sarah's voice was steady. "No. I'll sacrifice us for Earth." The gamble. The human reactor screamed as power surged beyond safe levels. The ship trembled violently, its hull cracking, its circuits sparking. Energy built up, flowing through the breach into the alien flagship. The reactor there began to pulse wildly, destabilized by the human chaos flooding into it. The alien crew panicked, their perfect order breaking under the madness of human improvisation. They had never faced such a weapon before. "Now," Sarah shouted. Elias slammed a lever down. The energy exploded. The fall of the flagship. The blast tore through space like a second sun. The alien flagship shattered, its pieces scattering in every direction. Fire consumed its hulls and shockwaves rippled across the battlefield. The human ship was thrown clear, spinning wildly. Half its systems went dark, and fires raged everywhere, but it survived. On the command deck, Sarah pulled herself up from the floor, blood dripping from her forehead. She looked out the cracked window and saw the alien flagship torn apart. Cheers erupted across the crew. Elias collapsed into a chair, tears running down his face. "We did it," he whispered. "We actually did it." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "We showed them what humans can do." The retreat, the destruction of their flagship, shocked the alien fleet. For the first time, their perfect formation broke. Ships pulled back, their commanders unsure. Fear spread among them. They had expected easy victory. Instead, they faced a species that turned scrap into weapons, chaos into strategy, death into defiance. Slowly, one by one, the alien ships retreated, vanishing into the void. Earth was safe. For, now, aftermath. The human ship floated in silence, broken but alive. Fires were extinguished, systems patched, and the wounded cared for. Sarah stood on the deck, watching Earth below. The planet was beautiful, shining blue and green. For centuries, humanity had been small, fragile, and divided. But today, they had stood together. Elias joined her, his clothes torn and dirty, but his eyes bright. "We beat them, Sarah. Against all odds, we beat them." Sarah nodded. "No, we survived. That's what humans do." The battlefield above Earth was quiet now. Smoke drifted through space, floating debris from the shattered alien fleet. The human warship, battered and scarred, drifted slowly in orbit. Its engines were damaged, fires burned in some corridors, but it had survived. Against impossible odds, humanity had prevailed. For centuries, humans had been underestimated. Their technology was primitive compared to alien empires, their fleets small, their nations divided. But now, the galaxy had seen what humanity could do when it refused to bow. The world watches on Earth. Billions stared at the night sky. Satellites captured the alien retreat, and news channels broadcast images of the half-destroyed rising Starship. People wept with relief. Children cheered in the streets. Humans had faced extinction and survived. Dr. Elias Karim, now standing in the command center, watched Earth turn below him. Cities glowed like scattered jewels. He thought of the past, of wars, of lost generations, and then he smiled. Humanity had taken a broken, abandoned ship and made it into a weapon that could strike fear across the stars. Captain Sarah Holt approached him. Her face was smudged with soot, her uniform torn. Yet her eyes held the same fire that had driven her through the battle. "We did it," Elias whispered. Sarah shook her head. "No, we survived. That's what matters. Victory isn't about the fight. It's about what we do with it afterward." Humanity united, the ship, now named the Phoenix, had become more than a weapon. It was a symbol. Every nation on Earth contributed to its repair and defense. Engineers from Asia, pilots from America, scientists from Europe, and soldiers from Africa all worked together. Old rivalries were set aside. Differences mattered no longer when the survival of the species hung in the balance. Workers who had once fought in conflicts now shared meals together, repaired damaged systems side by side, and celebrated small victories. The ship's corridors echoed with laughter and chatter instead of alarms and fear. Humanity had become stronger not just because of the ship, but because they had learned to trust each other. Elias walked through the corridors, watching people fix damaged consoles. One young engineer looked up from a repaired railgun and smiled. "We really did it, didn't we?" Elias nodded. "We did more than survive. We became something greater." Lessons learned. The aliens had thought humans were weak, chaotic, and predictable. They had underestimated one thing: the human spirit. Humans could fail, yes. They could be fragile, impulsive, and reckless. But they could also improvise, endure, and unite in ways no alien could predict. Chaos became a weapon. Determination became power. Sarah trained the crew for what was coming next. "They might return," she warned. "Or worse, others may come. But we're ready now. Not because we have the best technology, but because we have something no alien can match. Us." Elias smiled at her words. Humans had taken scrap and ruin and transformed it into something unstoppable. That was their greatest weapon, preparing for the future. The Phoenix required repairs, yes, but the lessons of battle had forged a new strategy. The ship was no longer a simple warship. It was a living network of human ingenuity. Every corridor, every system, every improvised weapon told a story of survival and determination. Plans were made for patrols beyond Earth's orbit. Scouts were launched to track any returning alien fleets. Humanity began preparing not just for defense, but for exploration, for diplomacy, for proving that they would never be conquered. The ship's crew trained relentlessly, not as soldiers, but as protectors of a species that refused to be crushed. They were the first true ambassadors of humanity's defiance in the galaxy. Sending the message, Captain Sarah Holt stood in the command deck and looked at the stars. The alien fleet had fled, but she knew their kind would remember the lesson. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was a storm. She opened a universal communication channel, sending a message to every civilization within range. Her voice, steady and commanding, carried across space. This is Earth. We are alive. We are united. We rebuild what is broken. We defend what is ours. Let every race know. Humanity will not bow. Humanity will not surrender. And if you threaten us, we will rise again, stronger, smarter, relentless. The message echoed into the void, carrying the story of survival, courage, and ingenuity. It was not a threat. It was a declaration. Humans had arrived among the stars, and they were not to be underestimated. The legacy months passed. The Phoenix remained in orbit, repaired and reinforced. The human crew grew in skill, confidence, and numbers. Nations cooperated to create new ships using a combination of alien and human technology. On Earth, monuments were built, not to individual heroes, but to humanity itself. Stories of the Phoenix and its crew spread across the world. Children dreamed of joining the ranks of explorers and defenders, inspired by the courage of those who had faced the galaxy's most fearsome fleet. Elias watched a young child press her hands against a holographic display of the Phoenix. "One day," she said softly, "I'll fly it too." He smiled. "And you will, because that is what humans do. We reach higher, we rebuild, we endure." Final reflection. Captain Sarah Holt looked out at Earth one last time before returning to the Phoenix's bridge. She had led her people through fire, chaos, and death. She had faced fear and exhaustion, yet she had never wavered. The ship was battered, but it flew. The crew was tired, but it was alive. Humanity was scarred, but it was unbroken. In the cold silence of space, she whispered to herself, "We are not perfect. We fail, we bleed, we fall, but we rise. Always." And as the Phoenix soared toward the stars, humans everywhere knew the truth. They had rebuilt what was abandoned. They had survived what seemed impossible. They had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest weapon was not its ships, its weapons, or its technology, but its heart. The universe would never forget Earth, and humanity would never forget itself. Closing scene. The Phoenix drifted into the blackness of space, engines glowing faintly, hull scarred but unbroken. Stars stretched endlessly ahead, waiting to be explored, defended, and conquered. Not by alien empires, but by humans. On the bridge, Sarah turned to her crew. "This is only the beginning. We are human. We will endure. We will rise. And the galaxy will remember us." Below, Earth rotated peacefully, shining blue and green. It had survived. Humanity had survived. And from the ruins of the alien ship, a new era had begun, a legacy of defiance, ingenuity, and unbreakable spirit.